We are continuing on in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, page 108, Two Wives. Try not to condemn your alcoholic husband no matter what he says or does. He is just another very sick, unreasonable person. Treat him when you can as though he had pneumonia. When he angers you, remember that he is very ill. There is an important exception to the foregoing. We realize some men are thoroughly bad-intentioned, that no amount of patience will make any difference. An alcoholic of this temperament may be quick to use this chapter as a club over your head. And I have written in the side, narcissist. Don't let him get away with it. If you are positive he is one of this type, you may feel you had better leave. Is it right to let him ruin your life and the lives of your children, especially when he has before him a way to stop his drinking and abuse if he really wants to pay the price? The problem Okay, we're not going to read that yet. We'll stop on those two paragraphs because we're getting into good stuff. All right, so I have that, especially when he has before him a way to stop his drinking and abuse if he really wants to pay the price. I have written beside that in reference to this narcissist type, ego won't let him. I have twice been in long-term relationships with a narcissist. My first marriage of over 12 years, and my second relationship was also with a narcissist. I am fluent in dating narcissistic men. Fluent, unfortunately. And I was actually reflecting on my first husband the other day, in that I don't know if it was in this meeting or another meeting, they all amalgamate together, but he was court ordered to treatment. He was court ordered and remanded into custody into treatment. So he sat in jail for 2 weeks waiting for a treatment center space to open up for him. And he did his stint in treatment. And I was talking to Joe on the phone because I was cleaning Nick's room. And there is a picture in Nick's room of the kids with their dad while he was in treatment. And I was reflecting, he had this program at his fingertips, but he chose not to take it. Which is a super sad fact. But it was his ego wouldn't let him. So I'm sure some of us might have some experience with this. Leslie, your hand is up. Can you unmute?
Is it for me?
Yeah.
Oh, hi. Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Leslie, alcoholic, here calling from Kamloops now with my kids, but page 108 really reads to me. I left my husband temporarily because of his drinking and his refusal to do anything about it. Just blame, shame and blame for things that I've done in my past. And I says, I have been sober now almost 2 years. And it's just like I wanted to. I just asked him, do you want to separate? You take the rental, I'll take the house. It's just like, it's unbelievable what it's come down to. And he drove my daughter away last week. She says, I'm not dealing with this effing asshole anymore. I had to deal with him all my life. And her wedding is in September, and I don't think he's invited. So alienation, isolation, pushing people away and not looking at himself, but then laying the blame on me. Like, I'm not doing. I says, I'm in AA, I'm in the program, I'm trying to get better. But then on the weekend I did realize that in listening to the other on Sunday's Zoom, I realized that I do have some major problems. Like I'm figuring that out. I'm going to be working on self. So that's what I got to say about that. And I mean, how far do I have to go until he clues in, or will he clue in? So he's one of those. I didn't realize that he was a narcissist, but oh my God, he is. Born in the 40s, and he just, like, the woman stays at home, works, and then, oh, hey, hallelujah, you're going out to work and making a wage, even bonus, like that type of a person. So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Leslie. I'm very, very, I want to cry right now. I love you, and I think this is a huge step in your journey, and I'm going to speak for her because I know that she probably won't mind, but you can reach out to myself or Yvonne, because we've both been there, done that, and I'm sure there's a million other ladies in here, well, not a million, but, a few, that can put their hand up, and you can reach out to us because we've been there, and read up on narcissism, and a lot of light bulbs will go off. It helped me a lot to know what I was dealing with. And you can read page 108. And this kind of leads to those people. When it talks in how it works, where's my how it works? Where it says they are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. They suffer from those grave emotional and mental disorders, and they could recover, but they don't have that capacity to be honest. And narcissists fall into that category a lot of the time. So reach out. I'm over the moon. I think you're gonna grow, and there's so much potential there. I'm gonna go to Yvonne, and then I'll cut to other ladies. Sorry for switching the order up. Yvonne.
Hi, I'm Yvonne. I'm an alcoholic, and Leslie, I feel ya. Yeah, and that definition of a narcissist, a person who has an excessive interest in or admiration for themselves. That, my husband, who I left in January, I never could do anything right. It was never enough. I was always at fault, blah, 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 blah. Since I left, I have grown so much. And I'm calm. I don't have my shoulders up by my ears. My tongue's not pushed at the roof of my mouth. I'm not clenching my jaw. I still have a little bit of bursts of anger here and there. And I also find that when I deal with him, I get that emotion. But just the release. And I knew when I left it, I think I mentioned it before. It wasn't a big to do or a fight or anything. He was doing his stuff to me, saying his things to me. And it was just like this, God just, it's time. And everything fell into place, the apartment, the money, everything. And it is, it's sad. I mean, we were married 35 years in December, and I walked out. But it's one of the best things I've done. So, not saying it's for everybody, but it was for me. It was the right thing to do. So, yeah, give me a call if you want, and we can chat. So, all right, thanks, you,
Yvonne. All right, Michelle S. Sorry for going out of order there, but just.
Hi guys, how are you?
Good. Oh, I like the hat in the picture.
Oh, thank you so much. Really nice to be here. One of my very good friends recommended that I come to this meeting, so here I am. So I'm so happy to be here. So there are no coincidences. I have been sober for about 14 years. Actually, I'm celebrating 14 years this weekend, and yeah, that feels really great. And spiritually and mindfully, I'm really my sobriety has reached another level because I've been putting in the work. Let's just leave it there. So when we were reading just now, I had to recently, back in January, I was having some difficulties with someone in my life, my husband. And I was, my sobriety started to slip, and I started to not feel the serenity and I was off the beam, so to speak. So I reached out to my sponsor and I asked for help, which is really hard for me to do when I know that there's going to have to be work done. And she introduced me to another program, and I was very angry and I was very upset because I felt that why was I always the one having to do all the damn work, and why is everybody else walking around doing what they're doing? And I was resentful, so I joined another program, and it has saved my ass. So not only has my AA spiritual, I wake up alcoholically every day, right? So I have to do those 5 things every morning. I have to call a sponsor. I have to make meetings. I have to pray. My prayer life, I was never a prayer. I just wasn't praying. And then one day I started praying, and I'm a results girl. So if I'm putting in the work and I start to feel really good and I start to feel like the results are paying off, I continue to do that. And I've been doing that. And it's so funny because in this other program, I learned that if the other person is the problem, there is no solution. So again, I have to start I have to put the focus back on myself, which again is like WTF. Again, back to Michelle. But if I want to be happy and not right, I have to continue to grow on a daily basis, continue my A, continue this other program. And guys, it's a lot of work, but I gotta tell you, I just did my 4th step again with my sponsor about an hour ago, and I'm feeling really, really good. Like I feel like I'm just not that girl I used to be, and it's because of both programs. And I'm just really grateful to be able to share that with you guys. Whoever's out there, and it's your first couple of meetings, just stick with it because it does pay off. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Lisa G. Please.
I wanted to bring us back to some similar words on 67 where it says, "This is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God save me from being angry. Thy will be done." We avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat a sick people this way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. We can't be helpful to people, but at least God will show us the way to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. And that brings me right back to our reading where you were saying, where it says, and you giggled actually, where it says, treat him when you can as though he has pneumonia. But the line before that is just very, very important to me, and it fits my life right now. Try not to condemn your alcoholic husband, no matter what he does or says. He is just another very sick, unreasonable person. Treat him when you can as though he has pneumonia. Now, the person in this sentence is not a husband. It's a different kind of person with authority. And as long as I remember that God has had my back up until this share, he will carry me through this situation with the fill in your blank husband rule, because people who were married to same gender doesn't apply really, because the language is different in 2020. But fill in your own blank. Just treat them like a sick person, and go to Source Energy for your strength, and you'll have a faster resolution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lise. And I'm going to pop us back to page 552 as well. And I don't usually refer to the backstories, as you know, but 552 has a great suggestion for prayer. And anytime we can enhance our prayer life, it's worth a while to take a look. So on 552, the prayer is this: if you have a resentment you want to be free of, if you will pray for the person or thing that you resent, you will be free. If you will ask in prayer for everything you want for yourself to be given to them, you will be free. Ask for their health, their prosperity, their happiness, and you will be free. Even when you don't really want it for them and your prayers are only words and you don't mean it, go ahead and do it anyways. Do it every day for 2 weeks, and you will find you have come to mean it and you to want it for them. And you will realize that where you used to feel bitterness and resentment and hatred, you now feel compassionate understanding and love. And I found that to be a very useful tool in prayer. And so I always like to add to my prayer toolbox, and hopefully you like that one too. All right, Lois, before we read about the 4 husbands.
Yes, my dog is barking at a delivery guy. But I too had to leave a husband, and it says it right here. an alcoholic of this temperament may use this chapter as a club over your head, and that's particularly what happened to me. He went to AA and chose not to follow the program. So the abuse got to be too much, so for my own and my children, I had to leave. But I also did what Kimberly was just talking about on 552, was that I prayed for him. I still pray for him. I pray that he has whatever he needs. His needs are met. I don't pray for his wants, but I pray for his needs are met. And I chose not to badmouth him in front of my children, so that they could have a good relationship with their father if they chose to. So for me, that worked out fine. I have a good relationship with my children who are grown now, and they still have a relationship with their father. So it's an individual choice as to whether you can stay or you can leave. I had to leave, to the point where I put my truck behind where I worked and went across the street to the lady that was sponsoring me and stayed at her house so he could not find me. So, and it's everybody's individual, choice. And I'm not the monitor of anybody else, but for me, that's what worked. And, it seems to work out for the best all the way around. So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Lois. Yes, and I just thought of it, and when it comes up in my thoughts, I like to say it. If you have a to-go bag packed or a run bag packed, you should go. So if you've got a bag ready to go at a moment's notice, just in case, you should use it. Don't wait for it to be the right time. Take that bag that you've got prepped and mosey on away. We'll all be here to support you. Just had to say it because it came to my head, and that's how my brain works. Alrighty, let's move on to the 4 husbands. I like these ones. I thought I was a husband number 1, married to a husband number 4, but apparently I was just a 4. Anyways, the problem with which you struggle usually falls within one of 4 categories. 1, your husband may only be a heavy drinker. His drinking may be constant, or it may be heavy only on certain occasions. Perhaps he spends too much money for liquor. It may be slowing him up mentally and physically, but he does not see it. Sometimes he is a source of embarrassment to you and his friends. He is positive he can handle his liquor, that it does him no harm, that drinking is necessary in his business. He would probably be insulted if he were called an alcoholic. This world is full of people like him. Some will moderate or stop altogether, and some will not. Of those who keep on, a good number will become true alcoholics after a while. Husband number 2. Your husband is showing lack of control, for he is unable to stay on the water wagon even when he wants to. He often gets entirely out of hand when drinking. He admits this is true, but is positive that he will do better. He has begun to try, with or without your cooperation, various means of moderating or staying dry. Maybe he is beginning to lose his friends. His business may suffer somewhat. He is worried at times and is becoming aware that he cannot drink like other people. He sometimes drinks in the morning and through the day also to hold his nervousness in check. He is remorseful after serious drinking bouts and tells you he wants to stop. But when he gets over the spree, he begins to think once more how he can drink moderately next time. We think this person is in danger. These are the earmarks of a real alcoholic. Perhaps he can still tend to business fairly well. He has by no means ruined everything. As we say amongst ourselves, he wants to stop. Husband number 3. This husband has gone much further than husband number 2. Though once like number 2, he became worse. His friends have slipped away. His home is a near wreck, and he cannot hold a position. Maybe the doctor has been called in, and the weary rounds of sanitariums and hospitals has begun. He admits he cannot drink like other people, but does not see why. He clings to the notion that he will yet find a way to do so. He may have come to the point where he desperately wants to stop but cannot. His case presents additional questions which we shall try to answer for you. You can be quite hopeful of a situation like this. Husband number 4. You may have a husband of whom you completely despair. He has been placed in one institution after another. He is violent or appears definitely insane when drunk. Sometimes he drinks on the way home from the hospital. Perhaps he has had delirium tremens. Doctors may shake their heads and advise you to have him committed. Maybe you have already been obliged to put him away. This picture may not be as dark as it looks. Many of our husbands were just as far gone, yet they got well. Let's go back to husband number 1. Oddly enough, he is often difficult to deal with. He enjoys drinking. It stirs his imagination. His friends feel closer over a highball. Perhaps you enjoy drinking with him yourself when he doesn't go too far. You have passed happy evenings together, chatting and drinking before your fire. Perhaps you both like parties, which would be dull without liquor. We have enjoyed such evenings ourselves. We had a good time. We know all about liquor as a social lubricant. Some, but not all of us, think it has its advantage when reasonably used. All right, so let's discuss our husband types, but also discuss ourselves. So for me, in my 20s, I was like a husband number 2. And then once I, got into my 30s, I thought marriage and children would turn me into a husband number 1. But what I found is I was a really good mix between 3 and 4. If I drank red wine, I was a 4, where not committed to hospitals and sanitariums, but I would go to the hospital because I was severely dehydrated and needing IVs to fix me up. But I still didn't think I needed to stop drinking. But all the earmarks were there. Now, I was married to a definite 4. He would have anger sprees, you could see it coming, but he sometimes acted like a 1, 2, or 3. So you can have combinations of them all, or you can start as 1 and kind of move around, which was my case. Like I was like, oh, I used to be a 2 and then I was a 1. Well, I was a 3, 4 for sure. I turned into an angry little boy when I drank red wine, and I would fight anybody. It was nuts, just nuts. Jekyll and Hyde over here. Who wants to discuss our husband types? Nobody? Suzanne. Oh, there you go. Oh, you're muted. Hang on.
Unmute. Okay, I can speak of an ex who was an addict and who was of the 4th type, but also who was never going to find this program, was never going to find God, and needed to be left behind. So those people I cling to because I want to save them. I want them to have a pure heart and to be loved. And my sponsor said, oh, guess what? Suzanne needs love. She needs to be accepted. So I guess I was playing around in the martyr territory. But once I realized that the red flags were ignored, the first red flags, the second, then I realized it was time to let that person go, and they were never going to come back to me. So that was God's will. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Mm-hmm.
Leslie. These pages were written for you, Leslie.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so Leslie alcoholic, and I would have to say that I would be husband number 2. But in my 20s, I didn't drink, and in my 30s, it was only after my accident where I really started to drink. But I became husband number 2 around my 50s. So now, and my husband, he's all husbands. He just, whenever he, hang on a second, I gotta move here. Whenever he feels the need, he'll go, he'll go on a spree, and if he feels that he's got to quit, he's quit now a week, a month, 2 months, but he's always starting up again. And that was the one thing that I did notice. He has started to get a little bit more violent, a little bit more physical, because of his frustration and anger. I think more at himself and then of course me. So it's just where do we go from here? We'll have to find out. Thanks for letting me share.
It's a God's will. It's a journey. We're just along for the ride. Lois.
Yes, and having a number 4 husband made it look like I was a number 1.
Yes.
So, but that wasn't the case. As long as I was dwelling on his alcoholism, I wasn't doing a thing about myself.
Mm-hmm.
So once I got out of the situation, I was stuck with me. So that's when the real journey started, and my own understanding that a lot of the things that happened were of my own making, or that I minimized a lot of the situation, or I allowed it, because we teach people how to treat us, and when I stopped feeding into the arguments, that's when they got more violent, because he wasn't getting the payoff that he was before. He didn't have me to blame. He sort of had to look at himself, but he really wasn't going to do that. So for me, when we're dealing with somebody that we're married to, it's truly hands off and pray and try to work on our own spiritual condition. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks so much, Lois. Bev.
Good afternoon, ladies. How is everyone? Hopefully well and staying cool. I was definitely, my first husband was definitely a number 4, and I wasn't even a drinker at all yet. I drank alcoholically the first time that I drank at age 16, and I was well on my way, but I chose other things early on in my addictions. So he was definitely, well, I love what Suzanne said, because I was a fixer and I attracted those people totally. And I thought that, well, here's how sick it was. I was in my alley right behind my apartment smoking a joint, and he stumbled down the alley drunk, barely could see, and I invited him in, and then we got married. So my picker was really bad, but I thought I could fix him. I thought I could make it all better. And because of the way I drank alcoholically at age 16, I was a 4 in the making from the jump start. It didn't, for me, I believe that it was in my genes. I gradually got there, but it was definitely, full on game on as soon as I did start using the alcohol. So
I'm just grateful today to have a loving husband who is not one of us, who understands me and has supported me this entire time through my journey. So that's what I got. Leslie, proud of you.
Thank you so much, Bev. I like what Joanne just said in the chat. She said, there should be an edit, a number 5 husband, short of entirely becoming ready, just a dry drunk. I'm going to go to Joan before Grace just because she does have her physical hand up and I don't want her arm to fall asleep.
I have from the day 19 and a half years ago, when I read the first 164 pages, have hated this chapter from the get-go. I mean, I have hated it. It has made me angry every time I have read it. My father was an alcoholic, and that's how I want to address this first. Now, he was one of these mean alcoholics. I think he was a little bit of every one of these. But I am telling you, if you've got children and you've got an alcoholic in the family, forget yourself. Think about what it is doing to those kids. Because I will promise you, it is hurting them as much, if not more so, than you. My mother, her way of fixing it was to turn into an addict. Mm-hmm. Then I really had a great time. So I'm just having to just feel like I have to say this, that even though you may want to stay, it is destroying your kids. Or it can. May not be. In my case, funny thing, I turned into an alcoholic, but it is something that I think that men and women do not consider. I mean, it's always about the husband or the wife, and somehow the kids get left out a little bit. So think about them. But as far as me, I think I was probably a number 1 turning into a number 2 when I quit. But I would love to have heard what my wife would think I was. I would give anything to know that. I have only had one spouse, and that was for 35 years. So, but I'm going to stop right now because I'm actually having trouble holding it together. I'll stay on.
Thank you so much, Joan. I just love you. I'm so glad you joined us. I'll try to find it. I have a picture of my kids from when we were going through our divorce and separation, and I have a side-by-side of my kids now. You can see how sick my kids were living in a home with 2 alcoholic addicts fighting every day. You can see it. Summer had no light. Summer had dark bags under her eyes, and she looked awful. And to do the side-by-side split is insane. Insane. I'll find it and I'll post it in the thing. So absolutely, I agree with Joan 100%. And it's funny that she said, ask my wife what she thinks. It was my narcissistic, sober, relapsed, second long-term husband that pointed out to me that I was a number 4. I was like, I'm not as bad as you. I was like, oopsies. Grace. Where'd you go? Grace?
Okay.
There you go. Lost you.
As I was reading through it and you were reading through it, I was just trying to look at what characteristics were mine. I know I came from an alcoholic home too, and it's all in the past, but I thought it would never happen to me, and it did. So, but I look at number 2, and it says, I just put she instead of he, is unable to stay on the water wagon even when she wants to. And, that's when I started to realize that this was a little bit more serious than I thought. And then she'd begun to try various means of moderating or staying sober. Oh, I experimented with everything. To the most ridiculous thing was size of glass and size of ice cubes, thinking if I had bigger ice cubes, I wouldn't have as much booze in the glass. I just filled it up more. And she's worried at times and is becoming aware that she cannot drink like other people. And that certainly started, I would go out, and we all started out the same way. We all started out having a lot of fun. But I was the one in many occasions that was just drunk going home, and they were just, had drinks and were a little high, but nothing that would have been as bad. And then always when I would come home like that and realize it, I would always begin to think more about how I could drink moderately next time. I tried all kinds of things, don't drink before I went out, because I always drank first and then went out. And I would, try all those kind of things. Limit two drinks when I went out, but I would forget that halfway through wherever I was, and that's so silly. Nobody else is worrying about that. And then I would just let it go. And, the statement in italics where it says he wants to want to stop. And that's where I had gotten to that point where I really wanted to, but I couldn't. So I kept experimenting on how to moderate. And then when we get into 3, she may have come to the point where she desperately wants to stop but cannot. And that's what was starting to happen, where I couldn't depend anymore on how I was coming home, on what conditions. I was driving into the city to meet my husband for business dinners, and I would drink before I even got in the car. And one time I had a fight with a huge truck at the Lincoln Tunnel. I lost, but my car was terribly damaged, and I just had to kind of lie how it happened. But it was because I had been drinking before I went. And then when we get to number 4, many of us are just far gone, yet they got well, and that's what happened. I did get well, but it was quite a struggle, because I enjoyed drinking, and this was something that was really in my mind, and I could see it first when I first got sober, that the alcohol used to stir my imagination and my creativity, and I didn't think I would ever be able to be creative again. I didn't think I could write well again, or any of that kind of stuff. I really saw a change in that, I thought. And then I would look back and say, we did have some happy times where I didn't get drunk. There were some happy times, in the winter when you put the fire on, you'd sit with one glass of wine and you were okay. And I certainly, the big thing besides the others was it was a social lubricant. It was so important to me because I realized how uncomfortable I could be in certain social situations. And if I drank before I went, then I found that I was more comfortable. I hated going to business dinners with my husband because I didn't know what they were really talking about. And I hated standing there and trying to have to come up with small talk. I was never good at it. I'm not good at it. I'm still not good at it. But that's what I used it for. So when I first came into recovery, there were a lot of adjustments I had to make, and social situations were not comfortable for me. I just kept making my meetings, surrounding myself with people who understand because they were in recovery. And it took me a while to really attempt to go out and do some social things. As I said, I can be uncomfortable in social. I just not good at small talk. And there are some people that can talk to anybody about anything. And I admire that. I think it's great. It's just not me. But I'm okay because I'm comfortable in my own skin. And I make sure that I go to things that I enjoy. And then I'm not forced to go into settings that I don't enjoy. But I saw myself in so many pieces from 2 to 3 to 4, which I could also see the progression of my own disease as I moved through. I would have loved to think I came in when I was at the end of number 1, or the beginning of number 2, but I didn't. I progressed through all of that, and so instead of looking at it as my spouse, I kind of try to look at it how I identified with it, because there was a lot I could.
Thanks, Grace. Pam G? You gotta hit your unmute.
Hi, I'm Pam. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey.
And Grace, my story sounds like yours. Going out with my husband to meetings, not to meetings, but to socialize with people he worked with, which I had nothing in common. Of course, it helped to drink. He was in real estate, and I knew nothing about it and really didn't care to know about it. But I think I started out. I see a little bit of myself in husbands 1, 2, and 3, and even a little bit in 4 when it talks about violence. I can remember having some violence in my past right in the beginning when I started drinking, when I was younger. But I feel like I started out drinking. Sometimes it would be moderate, and sometimes it would become heavy. I embarrassed myself, and I'm sure I embarrassed my husband. I know I did. Then with number 2, lack of control, I can see that all the time. I would be able to stop for sometimes. I think the most I stopped for was 3 months on my own. So, of course, that was really long back then. But normally it wasn't that long. Let's see. I didn't think I was doing anybody harm, myself or my family. Let's see. And number 3, I talked about that, when I felt like I was violent. But my problem right now is that my husband's normal, and I'm an alcoholic, and that's presented its own problems throughout the past 5 years. I didn't include him in the program. No one ever even told me, have him go to Al-Anon because it's a spiritual program, and to keep up with his spiritual side of it. I had no idea. So that's what I was hoping we address in this chapter, unless I missed it. I missed half the meeting on Friday. And the other thing I wanted to say about my drinking was that I didn't care that I didn't drink like other people. All I wanted to do was get high and have a good time and have some creativity and be able to talk. And no one ever told me I drank too much. So I wish some people had spoken up a little bit more. And it just never entered my mind. I was just happy as I was the way I was drinking, which is terrible to say. Fortunately, I didn't get into any big trouble with the law or anything along those lines. So the reality of it didn't really hit me in the face. And now when I think back to my drinking, sometimes I still feel like I'm in denial over really how bad I was. So that's something I'm waiting to keep unfolding. Thank you. I feel like I'm rambling, but thank you.
No, it's good. And definitely, like you both touched on with that social lubricant, like that pre-party in my bathroom when I was getting ready, drinking while I was putting my makeup and my hair on to get comfortable enough to be able to go out. And I would be too drunk to go out by the time I was done getting ready half the time. But I still would. Lori.
Hey, ladies. Hey, Kim. Thanks so much, everybody, for being here. Yeah, so I was looking on the Two Wives online, and because I have my big book on the floor here, but this gal, she's too cute. I can't get up. And so I lost my page here. Let me see. Number one, number two. Anyways, I could relate to number one, and I could relate to then number two, right? It gets progressively worse. It's a progressive disease. And so, like I was wanting to hide it, I wanted to hide it. I wanted to hide my drinking because I thought, well, first of all, I didn't live with an alcoholic. I lived with a normal drinker who barely even drank, didn't really even, not that he didn't like it, but anyway, he just, I think he knew I had a problem from earlier on in the relationship. So he just, at some point, didn't really want to keep it around that much. And I wanted to drink throughout, at some point, especially towards the end, the entire day. And so I would go and hide out in the bars and in the restaurants and drink before this and before that. I mean, I drank before I taught yoga to children. You know what I mean? So it was really bad. It was really bad. I felt like, if I would be caught, not only would he leave me, but then I would have to stop drinking because of it. And it was a subconscious thought. I didn't even really know that I subconsciously knew that that's why I didn't want to drink, is because I would have to stop. I thought, oh, it was all because I would lose him. Bullshit. He lost me, right? He lost me. And so, because of my alcoholism. And so I feel like that hiding was me just trying to subconsciously try to go for as many years as I could to the depths of my disease. And thank God he left me because, we're still friends to this day. He truly loved me. And that was a self-sacrificial thing that he did because he really wanted me to wake up and see that I had a problem and that I was lying to him about it now. And that, the lying was I think what did it for him, because I think obviously if you're in a healthy relationship with someone, they don't lie to you like that. Right. And the drinking was making me lie, and it was making me hide it. And so I'm grateful that he did, and I'm grateful that the next day I got sober, August 2nd. That's my sobriety date. And it's just been what a journey. And I mentioned last time I'm in a new relationship with a loving man, and he's also, like my ex, not an alcoholic. And so I can't really relate to that part of having someone in a relationship that is alcoholic. I've always had very, very, I'm very picky with men, and I have very, very high standards. So I think that's good. I'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori. All right, Mary Ann in New Jersey.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann, alcoholic. Well, unlike Lori, I never had terribly high standards with picking men, and that was a problem. But I identify both for myself and my ex-husband. For myself, I definitely come in at a 2. I was at my son's rehab when his counselors nailed me and told me I needed AA, and they actually used those exact words. We think you're in danger of not being identified, of not knowing, and they didn't know me at all, but they knew me enough because I was gradually increasing my drinking. Gradually it was becoming more a problem. Gradually I wished I could drink like other people or like I used to, and it was not something I ever wanted to stop. I wished it was different, that's all. I just kept trying it each day, hoping it would be different, but I never tried to like change it. So I was very fortunate that at that point I accepted the intervention because I had this aha moment and I heard what they were saying. I had been in Al Anon for my son before that. I was primed to listen to program messages and I got it. So I'm very grateful for that. My former husband, however, was further along, always tearing me down, denigrating. And you talk about the kids, the worry about what effect it has on the kids. You know, one of the things that got me to divorce, my children were little. And I woke up one morning, my daughter was, I guess, about 6, and my twin sons were 5. And it was early in the morning, like 5:30 in the morning. And I heard their voices, and their father had taken to promising to be home and do things with them, and then being out all night. And when he came in, he just, he was always late after they were in bed and never spent time with them. And so anyway, at 5:30 in the morning, I hear voices, and I get up and I follow the sound. My 3 children are in the bathroom with the door closed, having a meeting. They are meeting about their father and what is happening and why is he lying to them all the time and not doing what he says, and what do they think it means. And I had given up on trying to change him. I was going to a marriage counselor. He had refused to go back after the first one. After all, it was a woman who could listen to a woman marriage counselor. And of course, he didn't want to go to a male. So I just gave up at that point. I realized, it was time. I couldn't control the situation. I couldn't change it. And at that time, I wasn't drinking heavily myself. I had a little bit of ability to act on the situation. And it really was so painful to watch what was happening with them. And it didn't get easier on them in the beginning of the divorce. It didn't get easier on them for many years, actually, because he kept it up. Even divorced, he kept it up. He kept promising things and then not showing up. And then just, he'd blow up birthdays, he'd blow up Christmas, and he'd claim property, and they'd save their pennies and send him a birthday card, and they knew better. But I would say it took them many years to recover to the point where they can make independent decisions about if they want to talk to him or not. So the pain they had early on is something that I really regret about being married to that particular person. And I'm just glad that things have changed and that I got a program of recovery that helps us all. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Marianne. Well, I'm going to call that reading as done, and we will move on to page 111 the next time we meet on Wednesday. Just for simplicity.